Hi everyone, welcome to our Vision Tree Workshop. My name is Natalie and I work in our education department here at the Walt Disney Family Museum. We provide a variety of field trips, programs, classes, and workshops. For our workshop today, we'll be creating a vision tree. This is part of the Big Draw Festival. The theme this year is Make the Change. We will have some drawing aspects and construction going on in this project. Now you might be wondering, what is a vision tree? Well, a vision tree is a three-dimensional tree that will hold our motivations and goals following the Big Draw's theme of discovering ways to live in balance with our surroundings by creating a better world through human connection and environmental conservation. This will be a tree that you can decorate, design, color, and even write on. Maybe my motivations are more oriented towards sustainability and helping out around my community. The way that you approach this may mean something completely different to you. To give you an idea of what we'll be creating, this is an example of a vision tree. There are 4 sides. I've separated each side to reflect the seasons of the year. First we have spring right here, summer, fall, and winter. So this was inspired by the changing seasons. Of course, if you decide to approach this in a different fashion, you definitely can. We'll talk a little bit about what the motivations and goals are a little bit later when we start actually decorating our tree. The materials you will need for this workshop are some paper. Regular white paper is perfectly okay. It will mostly be used for the sketching portion of our activity. The other thing is some construction paper as well. Between the two, I would recommend using construction paper when you're creating the tree, mostly because construction paper tends to be just a little bit thicker. But if you only have regular paper, that will also work as well. It just won't be as sturdy or thick, but it should still be able to stand when the tree is assembled. The next thing you will need is a pencil and a marker. For the marker, it can also be a pen as well. These are for when we're gonna sketch out and outline our tree and leaves. And eraser, in case we need to make any changes. A pair of scissors to get everything out. And glue. Stick or liquid is perfectly fine. When we start assembling everything, this will hold it all together. Now, trees come in all shapes and sizes. As I start sketching out a few of my ideas, I'm thinking of different types of trees. When I think of trees, I usually think of redwoods, which are these huge, towering trees. Right now, I'm focusing more on the trunk, and when we're drawing out various sizes and shapes for the trunks, you can use circles that kind of show you how wide you want your trunk to be. It's very helpful because trees are pretty cylindrical there, so then you can do it that way, and then there's that circle on the bottom, right? And of course, a simpler way to do this would be basically just to draw a rectangle for your tree. And because I'm not drawing any of the branches and stuff, they will come out the tops here. I'm mainly focusing just on the trunk right now. And then we can start adding the branches later once we figure out what that's going to look like. See, other types of trees, these are maybe a bit on the shorter side, so maybe I want to create something even taller. Like if I want to use this whole page right here, I can even make it taller. And maybe I want to keep it kind of narrow. just like that. Or we can even think about making shorter trees, kind of shorter, stumpier trees. So again, I'm going to use the circle just to kind of tell me how wide I want that trunk to be. And then you can use a square for this part here and add some circles to kind of create those curves. These are the roots that are kind of going into the ground here. So the ground is right here. This is where it would go. And that's actually pretty short. So if I were to think about putting some branches out here, if this one was the one I was going to use for my project, I would really have to think about, well, the branches start coming out this way. I really don't have a lot of space between the branches here. And kind of the surface that you see on the bottom there. It's going to be pretty low to the ground, especially if I have some kind of flaring out downward here. So we want to add more space. This one might be a little bit tall just for the trunk. This one maybe just a little bit shorter, so maybe I'm going to kind of go in between these two here and have it around here. Maybe I'll also make it a little bit thicker because this one is pretty narrow. This one's also actually pretty small too. I'm liking the thickness actually of this one here. So if I balance it out with making it taller, but also using that width that we have, I think it would be a good balance. And then I really like the aspect of kind of adding these roots here. And then once we start adding the branches, they can kind of flare out this way. So I'm going to grab a new sheet of paper as we start thinking about branches, because branches also can move in different ways. So let's say if for this tree right here, if I want branches that kind of go downward like this, you know, that'll be vastly different from something like if I had a tree like this and then I had branches that kind of pretty much only shoot upward. So that's also very different. I want my branches for my tree to actually be spread out pretty evenly, so I do want them to flare out. So this is just kind of the general idea of my tree right now. So maybe I want it to kind of flare out pretty straight right now. Maybe I have some branches going down. And like some going upward like this. Pretty loose with this because trees kind of grow in all directions. There's really no wrong or right way to do this. Just figuring out what works for you, what you think will look best for the type of tree that you're making. Alright, so that's kind of the idea, is that I just kind of want it to flare out like this. But again, I'm going to be creating kind of a thicker trunk like I did for this one. I kind of want it to be around this size here. So as we're thinking about the branches though, as you add branches to your tree, you really don't have to add too many. I know I added a lot here, but remember, you will have to cut out 4 of these trees later on. So if you want to keep it pretty simple, it will save you some time if you just kind of stay with simple shapes. You can use triangles for this. Again, just a tree there, so you use triangles here to kind of help you out. It can be pointy like this. You won't really see it after we add the leaves anyway. Make them pointy, so those triangles here. Right. You just want to make sure that the branches aren't so thin that you don't have enough room later on to add on your leaves. Don't worry if it's not really looking like a tree right now. Again, once the leaves go on, it'll all come together. On a new sheet of paper, I'm going to start sketching out the trunk that I decided on. So spoke about how we want it to kind of be this wider base here, and I'm going to try to use pretty much the whole sheet to create this tree. So keeping it thick right here, but I do want to have some room on the bottom to have that flare, because this is going to help stabilize your tree so that it can actually stand up later on. So maybe I'll just flare on the bottom here just to get an idea. I do like that it's really wide like this. You can create something sort of like roots if you want, so that when it's standing on your table or surface, it almost looks like it's like digging into the ground. So maybe something like this. Or you can even create just a flat base right here. And that will actually be the stablest form that you can make if you just kind of cut it out like this, because it will have, let's see, more of that surface area for the tree to actually balance on a table once it's standing as well. Alright, so as I'm sketching out the tree, it's starting to look the way I want it to. And you can, when you start getting to the branches here, you can draw the branches differently on each side if you don't mind that when it is put together at the end, it won't match. And this is because when you have the cutouts on this side, so this is the right side here, right? When you have those cutouts, you're going to be gluing this right side up against another cutout on its left side. So if this side does not match this side, it's not going to neatly slot together when you're putting your tree together. And if you don't mind that, that's perfectly okay. If you want it to slot neatly together, it would be better if the trunk and branches are symmetrical. This means that they're exactly the same on both sides. If you were to cut this in the middle, it's going to be the same on both sides here. You can eyeball it if you're able to kind of see that it's like the same on each side and try to match it. You can do it that way. But an easy way to do this would be by folding the sheet in half. Let's fold this in half here, and I think that was actually pretty near the center. Yeah. All right. So folding the sheet in half here. And if it is easier for you after you fold it, you can unfold it just so that you know where the center is. And then you can kind of loosely sketch out what the shape will be, just to get a general idea of what it's going to look like. So as I'm sketching out my tree, again, I wanted those branches, I wanted one that was kind of going downward like this, but maybe also had some branches that were going upward like this. And I'm leaving that space because the leaves are going to be glued here later on. So I do want to keep some space there. And then maybe I will kind of move it upwards like this. Go. And I'll probably put 3 branches on this one too, I think. Maybe so it's pretty even on both sides. So something like that. Might make this part a little bit thicker. Go down there. Yeah. All right. All right, so now I'm going to take my marker and I'm going to start outlining where I want the actual outline to be so that when I cut it, I'll know exactly where it is. And I think I'm going to take this a little bit deeper there. There we go. If you did decide to go the route where you're doing the roots, you just want to make sure that these 2 areas of the root here are straight, because if you have one longer or one shorter, it's not going to balance correctly. When you stand it up, it's going to be a little bit lopsided, so you want to make sure that's straight. Right. And then I'm going to go here. Let's see, I'm going to bring these branches in a little bit more. Maybe I want a slightly smaller tree. Take it in just a little bit. All right, so we can see my outline a little bit better. And now we're going to take our scissors and you're going to start cutting it out. So the great thing about this is if you decided to use this method where you fold it, you're able to cut it out, and then when you unfold it, you'll have the full tree. If you decided to make them asymmetrical, so they're not the same on each side, then it would just take a little bit longer because you would have to cut all the way around for 4 of these. Or actually 5 of these, because this is going to be the stencil. Let's start cutting this out here. Okay, so now I have my tree cut out, and when you unfold it, you can take a look to see if that is the way you want it. If it's not, you can always kind of go back in, make any corrections that you need to. See, I think this is looking pretty good. So I'm probably just gonna be going with this cutout here. So because I did this on a white sheet of paper, this is going to be my stencil. So I'm going to grab some construction paper. If this is gonna be what I use, I'm gonna do the same thing as earlier and fold the construction paper in half. And then I can just place the stencil on top here. And you can use your marker to trace the stencil all the way around, and then you're gonna cut it out and you're gonna repeat this 4 times so that you have 4 trees. Now that I have 4 of my trees all stenciled out and cut out, it's time to start putting it together. You can definitely use different colors for each of the trees if you like. It would just be a different color on each side. I chose to use the same color for all my trees. Since I cut out my trees using the method of folding the sheet in half, this will be really simple to put together because there's already a seam in the middle. I have my glue stick with me, and using it to put everything together, liquid glue actually might work better when it comes to the branches. This is only because I added a lot of branches to my tree. Glue stick will still work, it'll just be a little bit trickier when you get to the edges. So the way that you would do this is we can do them 2 at a time. So we have 2 right here. And I'm gonna be gluing the left side of this tree, this first one right here, the left side here, to the right side of this tree. And the way that it would work is these 2 will be glued together like so. And you see by doing that, they slot pretty neatly together because they're the same on both sides, right? So once that's glued together, you're gonna have this half right here. It's gonna be half like that. You're gonna do the same thing with the other side, like this. So when they're glued together, you'll be able to press them in the middle, and you will have that 4-sided tree. So let's start gluing. I am going to put down a sheet of paper so that I don't get glue on my surface here. And I'm gonna again be gluing the right side to this left side here. So put glue on this side and some here, and then I'm gonna be pressing it like that. So this is kind of what I meant when I said the branch is going to be a little bit tricky. Make sure that you get glue on all of them. There we go. Okay, we got one side. I'll put some glue on this other side here. So what you're going to do is you're going to be pressing these together like this, trying to slot it neatly as possible. Once it's placed down, you can move it a little bit. Okay, flatten it like this, that actually probably really help you in terms of matching it up. Press down on it. Okay. So when you open it, it looks like this. See, that's looking pretty good. Yep. So got 1/2. I'm gonna take my other half and do the same thing. I'm gonna do the right side on this tree. Okay. The left side of this one. Okay. All right, so the right side is glued, left side. And then it might just be easier to lay them down like so. And move it around before it gets too sticky. All right. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Let me just press that down. Yeah, see, so this is what I mean with the glue stick can be a little bit tricky. It tends to kind of lift up a little bit on the smaller areas. You just want to hold those down. If you have some liquid glue, you can use that as well. And that should be really helpful. All right, so now I have the second half of the tree here. So now what we're gonna do is we have both halves like this. And we're gonna put them together to complete our three-dimensional tree. So that means I'm gonna have to put some glue all on the inside of both of these trees here. And again, recommend using some type of cover sheet surface you're doing this on. And this one is the tricky one because you're going to have to line up both halves together. I think I have them all glued, and let's place them together. So you try to get it to match up as much as you can. It helps if you kind of look at the top here just to see where the center is, the bottom as well. It's actually really helpful. And it should sure that you press those branches together because that is where the glue tends to not stick sometimes. So pressing the branches together. Press it down on the surface of your table here. Go on each side into that. Alright. Okay, so that's actually looking pretty good. I I have my three-dimensional tree now, so if I stand it up, it's gonna look like that up top, and it looks like this when you're looking straight at it. So now that we have our tree, the next thing that we are going to do is add leaves. And again, this part is definitely up to you on how you want to decorate your tree. You can definitely start drawing on your tree using markers. You can use color pencils. For the leaves, because I am going to do seasons, I'm probably going to have one side here that is all green leaves. Maybe the next side would be I can have like some flowers or some fruit growing. Next one will be fall, so I have a lot of those fall colors right here. And then the last one would be winter, which trees generally don't have leaves, but I think I still want to add them on, so maybe I'll use a white sheet of paper for the leaves to represent winter. Put this off the side here. And at home, if you have any recycled paper, paper that you use for other projects, you can definitely use that for this area. It's really great for it. I have some scrap paper here that I used for some previous work, so I can use this for my leaves. It doesn't have to be colored paper. It could be whatever you can find around, like magazines, or like old sketches that you have, or old drawings that maybe you don't have use for anymore. This would definitely be a good place for that. So the way that I like to draw my leaves is that, I mean, you can really draw any way you like. Generally, I just kind of go with like a shape like this, where it kind of has a curve like a leaf on one side. If you wanted to draw some leaves that maybe have a little more texture to them, or maybe even like a little more pointy, you can definitely do that as well. Like this, or even something like maple leaves, right? These are just general sketches for that. Like that. So something like that you can definitely do for this project. You can do multiple different shapes if you like. That's completely up to you. I generally like to stay just kind of with this shape. I kind of want to keep it simple. Don't want to get too complicated with it. So because I decided that this is my shape, an easy way for me to cut out a bunch of these shapes would be that I draw out my leaf here, and then I'm just gonna cut a strip of this construction paper. So now I have this, and I'm just gonna fold it, and I'm going to fold it back and forth like this. Kind of like if you've ever made a paper fan before. Just fold it back and forth until you get to the other side. So once I have that done, I can just cut out my leaf here. So then once I did that, I was able to get 7 of these leaves here. And you could do that a couple times so that you don't have to cut out each individual leaf. Of course, if you're making different leaves, that you're gonna have to do it a few more times. But because generally mine is going to stay the same shape, I'm not really gonna change it. I might just change the sizes. That's not really gonna affect me too much. I'm gonna do the same thing. Let's see if this one, so I want some red leaves. And something easy is that if you know you're going to use the same shape, what you can also do is again use this as a stencil and just trace it out. Super easy, super quick. Got that there. Repeat the same process here. Cut it out, and then I'm gonna fold it a few times until I reach the other end. And then I'm going to cut it. Go. And then I have a few more leaves. So this is a really good process if you want to make a lot of leaves at once, depending on how many leaves you want to add to your tree. I'm probably going to add, I'm thinking, to each side. So I have my tree right here. I'm thinking maybe each branch will have at least 4 to 5 leaves, so each side would maybe have around 20. And you can change it up, so because I'm doing seasons, I'm going to be changing the leaves. If you use different colors for the actual tree itself, I mean, it's already going to change from side to side as you're flipping it through. And then you can continue to change the leaves for that as well. So I have all my leaves here. I've created a large variety of different sizes and colors. I have a few smaller ones, a few that are definitely a little bit bigger, but I think that would actually be really great for when I start placing them on my tree. You can start layering them in a way that feels best for you. Maybe like testing it out, putting it down just to see what will work. I think because I have different seasons, I'm going to think about which season I'm going to work on first. And maybe I actually want to work on the summer first. Because I think the summer I'm going to generally keep it all this shade of green, which means that I definitely need to cut out more of this color before placing them down. But how you layer it is also, going to affect how it looks. If you want it to be just a few branches here and there, that will definitely work. Or if you want to keep putting branches and layering them on top, your tree's just going to get bigger and bigger. Go. So you definitely need to cut out a few more leaves for that. But let's start gluing these down first. And I think something fun that I like to do when I'm creating these leaves is kind of slightly folding them in half. Not pressing down too hard, but just a little bit so it has kind of that U shape right here. So that when I glue it down, it kind of pops off the tree. And it kind of creates a little bit of that texture. If you don't want to do that, that's definitely okay too. It definitely does make it a little bit harder to glue sometimes. So like you might want to choose one side if you do that, and that's the side you're going to glue, because if you try to glue it in the middle here, it might not stick as well. Glue it like that. And again, I'm going to fold it. these leaves are a little bit big, so I am going to cut out a few more leaves. They're just a little bit smaller. And maybe I'll use one of the leaves that I already cut out as kind of that stencil. I'm going to place it down here. I'm going to start tracing it. You can see it a little bit right there. So now I have a few of my leaves here. I'm just going to move a few of my materials off to the side. You can see, so I have some leaves. I have a few thinner ones, which I really like. I think these would be really good for layering because it kind of changes up how it looks, because the sizes and the shapes are a little bit different. All right, so as I do that, you can also start thinking about what I mentioned in the beginning of this workshop about kind of our motivations and goals that we want to put on our vision tree. It's going to be different for everybody. Mine in particular can be something like, I really want to help create a more sustainable future. So what you can do for that is you can write them on some of these leaves here. You don't have to write too many. If you want to maybe just write one or two on leaves that would go on each side, it's going to just kind of serve as motivation throughout the year. So for me, it can be something like, make sure to turn off the lights when you walk out of a room, or use reusable water bottles, or even volunteering at a community center, or something that means something to you. Because the question that you want to ask yourself when you're writing down some of your motivations or goals is, what is the change that I want to make in the world? And it can be something that's, it doesn't have to be something that's huge. It could be, maybe I just want to reach out to somebody, reach out to family and friends. I want to make a positive change, someone that might just need a little help right now. You can reach out to them, or it can be, like I said, something that you want to work towards. So this one could be, let's go with, I want to make sure I use a reusable water bottle. Okay, so I'm going to use a reusable water bottle, and then I can put this on one of the leaves that I have here and glue it down to my tree, and it's going to be there. And then if I'm moving on towards, let's say this side's going to be fall, I can do the same thing. It could be volunteer. At a community center. So volunteer at a community center. Maybe that will be one of my goals tools that I have. And then if you move on to winter, make sure to turn off the running water when scrubbing my hands with soap for 20 seconds. So there's a lot of possibilities. It's going to be different for everybody. It's whatever goals you want to work towards, whatever approach you want to take in creating and designing and decorating your tree. You definitely can. You can draw all over the bark here, create designs. You can add some color if you want. All right, and again, here is our finished product of the vision tree. You can see I actually reused some of the paper that was for a previous project, and there was some type of drawing on it, and I thought it was really great because it had this metallic look to it right there. All right, so then I added some of my motivations, like this one was the use a reusable water bottle there. I have volunteer at a community center. You can always add more after you put the leaves on, so whatever makes you feel comfortable, or maybe as it comes to you, maybe you can't necessarily think about something right now, so you can always just add it a little bit later, and you can keep on adding them if you want, depending on how many leaves you have. But that's it. Thanks for joining me on my workshop today of the vision tree. And I'll see you next time. Bye.